Buenas tardes y bienvenidas y bienvenidos a una de las últimas clases magistrales de la cuarta edición de Lo que viene, el festival organizado por la Asociación de Informadores Cinematográficos. Una clase que va a abordar una de las más novedosas profesiones de esta industria, la de coordinadora o coordinación de intimidad. Una profesión todavía incipiente, digamos que es episódica en España, pero que ya casi es obligatoria en las producciones británicas y estadounidenses. Y vamos a contar con ello, con una de las más demandadas en esta profesión, Ita O'Brien, la británica Ita O'Brien. Good afternoon, Ita.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine. I hope you are okay as well. En su currículum, en el currículum de Ita O'Brien, hay series como Sex Education, Normal People, I May Destroy You, Watchman, Is a Sin. I mean, this is an impressive curriculum, I have to say. We're recording today because tomorrow, when we're broadcasting this, you are on set already. You are in a new production. You don't finish. I mean, you are always on the run.
Yes, there's actually quite a lot of productions happening at the moment, and I'm sort of juggling many of them and helping support my intimacy coordinators with intimacy on set to also be working on other productions.
Yeah, because you have a big enterprise already. I mean, it's like when we talk about intimacy coordinator, what do we mean by this term?
So an intimacy coordinator is a practitioner who brings a professional structure to the intimate content in filming, TV, film, theatre, and also teaching in our drama schools.
I mean, it's like, what is your role in that, for instance, in a production? Can you explain to us, which kind of role it is?
So absolutely. If you think of the role of, say, a stunt coordinator, so you've got a fight, the production will earmark when they read the script, there's a fight right through to an explosion. They're going to earmark that. They're going to make sure they put a budget aside for it. They're going to contact a stunt coordinator. They're going to speak with that stunt coordinator and with the director about what this moment is, what the vision is. That stunt coordinator, if there's going to be techniques of a fight, how to do, those pretend fightings, bring in techniques that are safe but look real. Then they're going to choreograph that fight really clearly. They're going to do a risk assessment. They're going to lay down, crash mats if that's what's needed. They're going to put in safety equipment if someone's going to fall from a high ceiling or whatever. And then they're going to choreograph all of that so that it gives the production exactly what they want. And once you put it in front of the camera, it's exciting. The actors are safe because they've been taught techniques. It's been choreographed really clearly. Everybody knows what's happening. So you create a really fantastic fight by doing exactly the same for intimate content. Yeah, so we're having that conversation with the producers, speaking with the director, teaching the actors, and then giving clear choreography. And of course, our risk assessment is what degree of nudity, simulated sexual content, touch, and also what the emotional content is, where just like a fight, we're doing a risk assessment, and then we're making sure that we're mitigating all of that risk. So again, when you put that choreographed body dance of an intimate scene in front of a camera, everybody knows what's happening, everybody's comfortable, and they bring the best of themselves as the actor to that intimate moment.
For instance, Emma McKay, who plays the sexually confident Maeve in Sex Education, she said that, there was a kind of dance routine. That's when you mean choreography, you mean that one?
That's right. It's raising the awareness that when you come to intimate content, it is a body dance, just like a tango. You've got your amazing tango in Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge. It's exactly the same. These are two people moving together in a physicality that's going to serve each and every beat of that scene. You'll have interrogated that with your director and your actors, talking about what this scene is about, how it pushes the storytelling forward, what it lets you know about each character, and then each of those characters in relationship, what each character wants. And once you've interrogated that, you've already discovered the shape of what you need for this to tell that story in this moment, and then you get it up on its feet. Agree touch, agree, okay, is it okay for you to kiss today? Is it okay for you to have your cheeks and your neck touched? What's most importantly, what's not okay for you? We invite the positive no. Tell us what's not okay. Yeah, so that we can work freely with everywhere that is in your agreement and consent. And I always say your yes is your yes, your no is your no, and also your maybe is a no. If it's a maybe, it doesn't happen, because again, the actor can't be free. And then we make sure we work clearly, openly, creatively, the actors feeling listened to, empowered and autonomous, yeah, being able to give their best of themselves to each and every scene.
You mentioned the touch thing, because I mean, it's like when we say, intimate content, it might be just a peg, so something like that. I mean, it's not always a sexual intercourse. What do you mean when you say intimate content?
No, that's right. So, for example, perhaps you have a family. So you've got this lovely storytelling in your TV series of a family. Maybe, you know, two actors who don't know each other with two child actors who don't know each other. You want to have that familial touch, you know, of course, all of that things like a mother putting her hands around a son, you know, hugging, children laying, being tickled, all of that is beautiful, intimate content. But if those, you know, all of those actors, we need to journey that pathway through to agreement and consent to create that choreography in a really safe way, particularly if there are children involved. Any time that perhaps a body is used for a procedure, perhaps there's childbirth, really, really exposing if, you know, for an actress to be performing that. So absolutely important that modesty garments are put in place, agreement and consent of choreography. Even more so, perhaps if you have someone who's having a medical procedure who's unconscious. So, you know, that actor is the body, they're present, you know, but perhaps the body's being handled. Even more important that you're making sure that everybody knows what's happening. There's agreement and consent. Perhaps someone's having a bath. Yes, another time. Perhaps you've got an elderly parent of an adult child, you know, you've got someone ill in bed, they need to turn them over. So many times, any time that you come through to physical touch, yes, is making sure that there's no assumptions, agreement and consent, yes, of touch, clear choreography so that everybody can work openly and professionally.
I mean, everybody has cleared that. I mean, everybody in the industry right now, I mean, when they have kind of a script, I mean, they can locate when you are going to be required or something like that. I mean, the producers or something like that.
That is what's happening now. Yes, that producers are doing exactly what as I'm advocating, that they read the script and they're earmarking, okay, we have this moment of a kiss, we have this moment of two actors next to a swimming pool and then getting in and swimming nude. We've got this moment of, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, so that's what, that is exactly what's happening, that producers are coming to us, they've already identified, we've got intimate content, we know we want to work with a good practice, and so they're seeking out an intimacy coordinator.
Because who is calling you? I mean, who calls you for being an intimate coordinator in a production, in a given production?
So most of the time these days it is the producer, but it can also be the director who knows that they've got intimate content and says, I haven't got the skills to create this in a professional way, so they call in an intimacy coordinator. And I've also had a situation where actors on a production, you know, for example, some of the other actors from Sex Education have gone on to other productions. There's intimate content and that actress said, okay, with this content, I want an intimacy coordinator. And that's now being listened to and, you know, understood and accommodated. And that's really joyous when, you know, I go to those sets and the actor has felt comfortable and confident to be able to ask for what they need. And, you know, we've been called in and again, we can make the work in a really good way.
I think because your profession, it has been also kind of empowering the actors, because before it was kind of risky for them. It's like they say no, they might be understood.
That's right. Before the role of the intimacy coordinator, the influence was that if an actor was frightened to say no, yes, they felt that, and it was considered, if ever they said no, they were considered, you know, a troublemaker, a diva. They absolutely would be concerned about, you know, not being asked back. And I've had it sort of where, you know, the inference is, well, if you're an actor, you should be able to do any degree of nudity, any degree of intimate and sexual content, because you're an actor. And of course, that's completely confusing the fact that you might have the best actor for your role, a most talented actor, but they have boundaries around how comfortable they are with their nakedness. They might have boundaries about what they're comfortable to perform. regarding simulated sexual content. But that doesn't mean that they're not a brilliant actor and still your best actor for this job. But it just means putting in place this process that allows them to call their boundaries, to speak about their nudity requirements in a really professional way, so that we can all stay working with respect and creativity through to creating a really good scene where everybody feels empowered and autonomous.
Because, I mean, not everybody's, I mean, is comfortable with their bodies. I mean,
That's
it's
right.
like not everybody has the same level of intimate, I mean, private meeting or something like that.
This is it. Everybody has a different journey in their lives, and what comes from their families, what's happened to someone in their life, and that has to be given a space to be able to be spoken about. But in the workspace, we don't need to hear what that story might be. We don't need to hear why someone doesn't want to get undressed. It's perfectly natural and normal, but we don't need to know the story. But we do need to put in place this structure that the intimacy coordination protocols give you to allow that to be shared, respected, and then then we're working creatively in order to still create the scenes, giving the director the image and the sense of the intimate moment that they want, while also respecting the actor's boundaries. And of course, we work very closely with the wardrobe department. Before the role of the intimacy coordinator, of course, the wardrobe department, they were the ones very often that would have the ear of the actor. They'd be the ones that would be listening to the actor going, oh my God, I've got this intimate scene today. I'm feeling so nervous. And of course, we work very closely because even when, say if you've got a simulated sex scene, you never ever have naked genitalia in contact.
Together.
Not suitable. This is workplace. This is not private. So the least we have is a genitalia covering. But then there's so many different layers. You can have flesh-colored G-strings, flesh-colored dance belts, flesh-colored shorts, flesh-colored nipple daisies, camisole tops. And so we're always working with all of those different layers. So even when you've got a scene where you see two people, as it were, completely naked, you'll only have that perhaps just for the wide shot. As soon as you don't need it, you'll put flesh-colored shorts on if there's a two-shot or a close-up. So yes, the magic of our creative world, of our creative industry.
When does your work start? I mean, you are called between or before this production, or?
So my work starts, basically the best place for the work to start is in pre-production. Producers are knowing that they're working on a production. They've identified the intimate content. There's one production that I'm working on that the director called me in. It was sort of January last year. And of course it got postponed because of COVID, where I'm about to go and film this right now. So he called me in and had me on board before he even had the director or the scripts had been finished being written. So that was a producer really knew that for this content, they wanted to make sure that they were creating the best work. And that's always the best. When you're there, an integral part of the production, you're there as head of department in the production meetings, at the read through, and then right from those early days, having the conversations with the director, hearing their vision, checking in with the actors, checking in with wardrobe, so that everything's put in place, ready to to create the intimate scenes. And a big shift that the intimacy coordination asks for is that, as I described, just like a tango, if you're going to dance a tango or a stunt, that there's going to be time made for rehearsals. That there's no way you can speak to all your dancers and then not do anything, and then on the day of filming say, right, let's put you in front of the camera roll, go for it. You would never do that. But that is what's happened with intimate content. Whereas now we're saying it is a body dance, and so the most important thing is we make time to rehearse. So we rehearse these scenes at a point in time before the intimate content is performed. And that's a really important part of it. And again, it means that then on the day on set, the choreography is known, the actors are comfortable. And again, you can be quick and efficient during that time when you've got all the crew, when it's really, really expensive, minute by minute, isn't it, on set is really expensive. And that was some concern when we started, like, oh my goodness, how can we, have time to do this? But of course, you never say that with a stunt coordinator. You know, of course, you're going to rehearse. So that's also the shift with the industry and inviting productions to think about, okay, and now when do we need to rehearse this intimate content?
I mean, you feel that there is also a shift. I mean, they have been already a shift. I mean, there are people that they understand this situation already. So the industry is like welcoming you already.
That's right. And sadly, I don't know if you're aware that there's been, you know, coming to light another really high profile actor in this country, you know, who actually was awarded most recently, sort of actresses coming forward and actually sharing behavior that was not suitable. And while that is really sad, it's raised again the awareness of the need for clear protocols about safe working practice on set, and also in particular safe working practices in auditions. You know, there was an incident with this actor about, you know, abusive and you know, unsuitable behavior in an audition. And of course, the intimacy guidelines is very much, you know, trying to mitigate that the power hierarchy. You know, the work is about acknowledging that, you know, the different practitioners have a different degree of autonomy. Of, you know, so the director, of course, what the director says is what you're serving. You know, the producer is a person with the money, you know, money strings, and you're going to make, you know, that they're the overall one who's making sure that they've got a safe set. You know, so we're working for everybody, working to the top of their game, working professionally and with respect for everybody. But in an audition, you can't get away from the fact that there is an imbalance of power. A production, a director has something that that actor wants. And in that place, an actor is vulnerable. And we have to make sure in the industry that that vulnerability is not taken advantage of. So that's where it's even more important that we become more robust in our auditioning process.
I think you are like free. I mean, we can continue.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ita, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. Yes.
So I was saying,
you mentioned that audition, because I mean, you mentioned the power balance in an audition. Why? I mean, why is so important to be aware as well of the intimacy coordinator in an audience, in audition? Sorry.
Audition.
Can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
You were mentioned that one. I mean, those we have a problem of freezing right now, but I mean, it's like you were mentioning that. I mean, about the power balance in an audition. We were mentioning that is not really a power balance.
No, yes, by the very fact that an actor is auditioning, that they want something that this director and this producer has, then there is a power imbalance. And the industry has to have really clear and robust protocols in place so they don't take advantage of that vulnerability and of the possibility of an actor overstepping their own boundaries in their desire to get a job. So if something's going to be asked of an actor, they may well overstep themselves in order to please and in order to serve, in order to be seen to be the best and the right person for that role. But that's where the industry has to make sure it is not being exploitative in that place. So that's where in auditions we need to train casting directors with the intimacy guidelines and set up our auditions so that you know, we're really working professionally if intimate content or any degree of nudity is wanted in an audition. So the guidelines are that you shouldn't be asked to do any simulated sexual or, you know, intimate content at all in a first audition. If that kind of content is wanted, it should be given 48 hours notice. The actor should be able to be sent the script and to be invited to bring a support person with them. And then if that intimate content is being filmed, to write up a contract that they, with their agent or with themselves and the production, that they sign it, that if that content is filmed, then once that role is cast, that film is destroyed. Yeah, so that kind of get out there in you know, in adult sites and the rest of it. Equally, if a production wants to see the form of an actor, it is not suitable and not needed ever ever, ever to be naked in an audition. The least you should be wearing is either a bikini or swimming trunks. No need ever. You know, you can say, someone can see someone's form, you know, through that. So again, for actors to know that if ever an audition, a production is asking for them to be naked in an audition, I would suggest you say, thank you very much, but this isn't the production for me, and you walk away. You know, and that's the shift, is that also I was saying to actors, you know, you have developed your craft. Invariably, you have spent hundreds of thousands of pounds. You spent many, many hours training up your gift, your craft as an actor, and it is precious. And if you give it to someone or to a production that's not going to treat you well, there is an injury, and that's what's been coming out. And that's the shift since Me Too, is those actors who have come forward about these abuses have been listened to and heard, and the injury has been acknowledged. Yes, and there has to be a pathway to redress for that. You know, so if someone is not treated well, it really can damage you, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. And those injuries can ripple on in your life and last way more than perhaps if you twisted your ankle doing a tango. So you, as an actor, I'm also saying, honor your own craft. You know, it is not worth, you know, sort of destroying a bit of your creativity, destroying a bit of your beauty of your craft for a job. You know, it's better to really listen into yourself and say no to those productions that actually are not feeling good and right for you. And it leaves you open to, you know, to a job that is right for you. And also say perhaps a production wants a degree of nudity that is not right for you. It doesn't mean that, you know, again, if you say no when it's right for you to say no, then it leaves that role open for somebody for whom that isn't a problem. You know, so it's serving everybody. You know, equally a production doesn't want someone who said yes in an audition to something that they really know is overstepping their own boundaries. And then once they get into the production, it comes to that moment of that scene, the producers also go, oh, this actor said that they were okay with this, but really they're not. You know, and so it works both ways. So if everybody is actually working creatively, what is this a good fit? You know, is this right for me to work with this producer, for this producer to work, and this director to work with this actor? And yeah, and we keep that open dialogue so that we can all work openly and professionally.
At this point, I would like to introduce one question sent by one of our journalists, Alejandro Avila, asked me which risks have been in the industry before the role of an intimacy coordinator. For instance, you mentioned in the audition, but it's quite famous, for instance, the Last Tango in Paris scene. I mean, which risk there were before the role of intimacy coordinator was introduced in the industry?
So yes, you mentioned Last Tango in Paris. So basically, any time that something is done to somebody without, let alone without their consent, without their knowledge even, that is an abusive moment, yes? So there you had, you know, the director and the actor, you know, kind of bringing together, you know, an idea for this scene. This actress not knowing about it, apparently it wasn't in the script. She said, oh, no, I don't want to do this. Apparently Marlon Brando took her to the side and said, oh, look, it's just a film. But Lucci said he didn't want that actor, Maria Schneider, to know what was going to happen, because he wanted the response of a young girl experiencing that really. So that, to me, he said he did not trust that actor to bring their best of their acting skills to that moment. And that, again, is an abuse of power for me. And, you know, and then he laughingly says, oh, it's a butter scene, it's the butter scene. For me, this is not suitable, completely not suitable. And that's that kind of behavior, you know, that is called out with the intimacy coordination. What we're looking at is everything is known, everything is spoken about, so that you can make the work professionally, you know, with everybody bringing the best of their skills to this moment.
We mentioned like one of your roles, task is like having the consent and the comfort of everybody in the production. You mentioned as well taking care of the genital barrier, something like that. But there is also another role that is like, I mean, you are in charge of this intimate scene. I mean, you might request a singular staff member, maybe because, I mean, the scene is very sexually charged, and to feel, I mean, the people to feel comfort. Which kind of request is that?
You came in and out a bit. Can you say that again, please? Can you ask a question again, please?
I mean, for instance, yes, sorry, I think we are freezing again. Yeah, in a set, I mean, on a set, for instance, when there is an intimate scene, not everybody I mean, it's going to be in the set. There are only few people that is going to be resting. I mean, it's going to be there for the filming, because it's something like making more comfortable the situation for the actors, for instance. I mean, which kind of people are requested to be there? And if there is any other request, like for instance, only female crew or something like that, if you have encountered these kind of situations.
That's right. So it's really important then when you're performing the intimate content that you again are helping to keep the actors from being vulnerable by not having a gratuitous gaze on that intimate content. So several things are put in place. So the closed set, yes. So who's going to be present in the closed set is the director, the script supervisor, first AD, and then your camera operator, focus puller, and boom operator, and that is it. Yes, and of course then your wardrobe person who's going to come in and with the robes. Yes, pull robes and then put the robes back on. Also, what's really important in a closed set is that the only
I guess that the intimacy coordinator as well.
Oh yes, and the intimacy coordinator, of course. The next thing is it's really important then that all the monitors, other than the directors, the script supervisors, and the sound person, if dialogue is there, is turned off. So again, there's not a sort of gratuitous gaze, you know, that you would have, you know, you have your wardrobe and your makeup department and video village, all of those are turned off. If say the sound person has to be outside the room, then that monitor is hooded. So again, there's not a gratuitous gaze. And that goes right the way through from filming. And then also if the director wants to see playback, you know, so very often you have a closed set, you press the button, you know, the bell once the set's been filmed, but then the director goes, oh, I want to see playback, and then all the monitors are on. Not suitable. Really important that that stays closed set throughout the filming. Because again, you don't want, you know, other crew coming by and then being able to have that gaze that could be vulnerable making for that actor. There's the other couple of things that are put in place. So we put in place a timeout. So the actors, when performing an intimate scene, have the autonomy to halt the action just the same as the director or the first AD. And that's really important, so that no point do the actors feel that they need to keep going through an intimate scene if they're not comfortable. As soon as they don't feel something's not right, call a timeout. Could be for any reason. They need some water. You know, they've got a genitalia patch is beginning to peel off. And also, I say sort of it's natural and normal for people to become aroused during an intimate scene. However, it's not suitable, for example, if you have a penis, to be aroused in the workplace. So that might be a time that an actor would call a timeout, and they say, oh, I would be so embarrassed. And I'm saying, look, you call a timeout, it is respected. Nobody knows why you've called a timeout. Yes, I say call a timeout before it becomes obvious. So again, that's really important. So the actors can still feel relaxed, and to know that that's a natural part of our human anatomy. So calling a timeout, and there was one more thing. So yes, so those are the parameters. Oh yes, then that's right. So the last thing is that the film is marked R, restricted viewing, so that the filming, that the rushes of that intimate content have a very limited distribution to, you know, only those that are needed to. So again, that footage of that actor is respected right the way through, from filming right the way through into the edit.
I guess that also, I mean, in some cases, for instance, I don't know, maybe if there were two women involved in kind of sexual intercourse, something like that. I think there was sometimes they have been like people called like only female crew. I don't know if that happened or something like that.
So what we're looking at is trying to get, you know, well, at least gender parity within the crew, so that the presence on set is feeling respectful and not overpowering for any one actor. So it can work both ways. So if you've got a heterosexual sex scene, you've got a man and a lady performing the scene. And then if you haven't taken care, then you very well could have an all-male crew. So in that room, in that closed set, unless you've considered it, there could just be one lone woman. in amongst a male gaze for performing that intimate scene, which can be very vulnerable making. So that's absolutely something that we flag to consider that gender parity. Yes, and then equally, you can imagine if it works the other way around, if you've got an all-female crew and you've got a heterosexual sex and you've got one male with nothing but a female gaze, equally, we don't want that. So again, it's just about considering and having gender parity, but that needs preparation. Yes, you can't suddenly go on the day, oh my goodness, look, you know, we've got all male with one lone female. It's too late by then. Yeah, so that's again something that we talk about in the early days in pre-production, and make sure that you know, perhaps you know, practitioners are brought in for the day, or perhaps there's a female third AD that practitioner could then act as first AD for that day running the floor. So it's those kind of conversations that we have.
You mentioned the director, the producer, but I think also that, I mean, you might talk to the script writer, because that's right. I mean, maybe they're not very specific in their directions in a given scene, for instance.
No, so then once the scene has been filmed, then my work is then, you know, the next bit of the work is with the script supervisor. So for example, if an actor is wearing a nipple daisies and, you know, fresh colored shorts, you know, they're wearing that for their modesty and for those body parts not to be seen. So that's absolutely, so I will co-work with my script supervisor. I'll be saying, okay, if ever you see a nipple daisy, you mark that on that take, and you then set about having that bit of the footage destroyed. And that's also really important. We don't want outtakes, you know, finding their way, you know, sort of, yes, after the production's finished, that those moments are marked by the script supervisor and then destroyed, so that it's really, yes, so that those bits of the images cannot be used. And again, you're working in the edit with all the filming that respects the actor's nudity requirements.
But I was also referring to the script writers. That, I mean, maybe, for instance, I was thinking about normal people. I mean, that film, that book, I don't know how you translate it. That I mean, the idea that they have in that book into the scene, because I mean, you might construct, I mean, you might build this scene with the director, for instance.
Oh, so you mean the script editor that translated from the novel through to the script?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, because I mean, maybe you have only like they're having sex. How you build that one? I mean,
so you know, so most of the time in Normal People, Sally Rooney had actually written in beautiful detail, you know, that the journey of those intimate scenes. So for example, the scene at the top of episode 2, where Marianne is having her sexual awakening. So it's not Connell's first time, but it is Marianne's, but she asks if they can take their clothes off. She asks for protection. Yeah, he asks her, you know, that it's okay to say no, to stop at any time. Or I promise you, all of those beats were Sally Rooney's writing, yes, that were in the script. So at those times, it is our job as from the director, actors, and myself as the intimacy coordinator, just to honor each and every beat and make sure it's choreographed really clearly. And at times when it's not, then that's where we have that actor-director interrogation, looking at, okay, what is this moment? And then we, between ourselves, you know, find the pathway through to what is the physical story, and then we get that up on its feet. And then that's where, again, you know, that the role of the intimacy coordinator, we are body practitioners, we are, you know, dancers and choreographers, and we need to know about anatomy, physiology. So that as well as, you know, sort of, you know, we're actually learning more and more through having sessions with couples therapists, you know, so I feel it's really important that we continue to become even more detailed on, like, for example, on the anatomy of arousal, so that we know what the anatomy of it is, and then we can help to bring more truth and detail to the choreography of those scenes. So yeah, so we're working in that way to try and help make the scenes even better.
Up to now, we are talking about having this kind of cooperation with directors and producers, but have you been rejected by any director who has felt that you are curtailing his or her artistic view?
Absolutely, particularly in the early days, 2018 and 2019, where a director didn't understand the role, felt that it was encroaching, didn't want to speak to me even. I've been on productions where I've been told the director or the actors don't want your choreography, that I know they don't want you on set. Check in with the actors.
Gosh.
Yes, and so the fact that I'm present, but curtailed in that way is very challenging, you know, and it's like how can I make sure I'm putting in place the fundamentals, the core of the intimacy guidelines, while being told that that part of the role isn't wanted, and that is a big part of you know, the practice of intimacy coordination, that once I've taught my actors that the role of the intimacy coordinator and the process, then of course each and every set is different. The way each and every director works is different. The way each and every actor is different. You know, an actor's vulnerability or their comfortableness, as you know, we've spoken, with their body, etc., is different. So the big part of the role of the intimacy coordinator is then how you adapt, how you go with the flow, how you serve each and every person so that everybody is given what they need. But the days when a director doesn't want your work, won't even speak to you, they're very challenging, and but thankfully they're becoming less as time's going on. And the difference is, or for the directors to understand that the first thing is we're serving their vision. As the intimacy coordinator, we're not stepping in between. It's absolutely serving the writing, serving their vision first and foremost. And that's why sometimes the director says to me, oh, do you want to rehearse without me? It's like, no, because we know nothing without you. It comes from your vision. So it has to start always from the actor director read through, from that interrogation of the script. And only then, once that's been created with the director and the actors, then does the intimacy coordinator support. It's very important for the intimacy coordinator to be there, because again, as I said, as body practitioners, I'm sitting, I'm listening, I'm looking at impulses from the actors, I'm looking at how they're speaking, what the rhythm, what the energy of that is. And because of course I want the intimate content to look natural for each of those actors in those characters. And so I help to sort of recognize that and then reflect that back to the actors, so that we're using, you know, the impulses and the creativity that they're already bringing, you know, in how they're talking about those scenes. So it's really important the intimacy coordinator is present for that actor-director conversation, and then they can then take that work on, get it up on its feet, agree and consent, and then create clear choreography so the actors feel autonomous and happy, ready to create a really good work.
So we can say that it's a choreography tailored to the actor. I mean, you scan them and then you decide which kind of choreography is suitable for each actor.
That's right. Yeah.
Talking about that, I mean, Alejandro Avila asked me the same. I mean, he was like, how you can generate a climate of mutual trust between the intimacy coordinator and the director. I think you already answered that. It's also between the director and the actors. How you can generate this kind of mutual trust climate?
So on all the productions that you have mentioned, like Sex Education, Normal People, I May Destroy You, It's a Sin, they are the productions that have absolutely worked. They've listened to what I have spoken about with the process and the protocols of implementing the intimacy on-set guidelines, and then put it all in place. And once you've got that open conversation, that open dialogue, also for the actors to be able to see that the producer is behind the work, the director is endorsing the work, endorsing that role of the intimacy coordinator, then that also elicits trust. And that's so important. And that's where, you know, the productions where, you know, I've been told by the producer, you know, you're here for the girl, and and the producer hasn't even introduced me to an actor because they've not really, you know, understood or got behind the whole of the process. You know, I've been on productions where an actor won't speak to me, but on that production, the producers never even introduced me to that actor. So the producers didn't give the role any you know, clout or respect. So that was my reflections, is that, well, how can the actor, you know, sort of think that this is someone that I need to really listen to if the producers aren't, you know, sort of presenting you in that way. So it's really important that the producer is inviting you in and really endorsing the process. And then, you know, the director, you know, from those early conversations, knowing that you're there to support their vision, you know, to really serve them. And of course, that the intention is to create really good work. And then within that, you know, finding out and putting in place agreement and consent, as I've said. So inherent within the process of the intimacy guidelines is open communication, and within that, safety is put in place. You know, when you're checking out what the actors are happy with, you know, and checking in with the wardrobe, and also, like, say, I also check in with the set manager to make sure that the set is warm. There's nothing worse than everybody's there with their coats and their fleeces, and these actors are the ones that have to strip off to be naked, and the room's freezing. That's the worst. The worst is trying to act freely, openly, when you've got goosebumps. So that's, again, part of our role, is just connecting up all the different roles. So all of that elicits trust. All of that is what goes towards an actor feeling empowered, respected, autonomous, and that the focus is on putting everything in place so that they can bring the best of themselves to this character and to this intimate moment, bringing the best of their acting skills, and then for that production, creating the best content possible.
You mentioned that one, and I want to stress, because you are also the writer of set guidelines. I mean, the thing is, if I'm not wrong, I have to check it, because it's like guidelines for the intimacy set, the coordination on set or something like that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned already one of them, the one, I mean, you are saying about the auditions, but there is also another one about when you are recording or filming like abusive content. I mean, you mentioned that, I mean, by the intimate coordinator should be a fight coordinator. I don't know if it was the case, because this is based on that. I mean, I may destroy you. I don't know if there was somebody else behind, I mean, close to you, or for that moment, for the abusive sexual content, something like that.
So for the moment in I May Destroy You, we actually, you know, that the movement, it was not very violent, was quite slow, and it's just the moment that he puts his hand over the wrist, you know, so there we all understood the techniques of reverse energy. So the person who's putting their hand is the one that holds it, and the person who's being done to pushes their hand into, you know, they're the ones that control the energy. So we didn't actually co-work with a stunt coordinator there. But I have been on production. So, for example, on Sex Education, episode 8 of season 1, where it goes from Adam and Eric are in detention in the music room, and they go from that fight where they're rolling around each other, and then into a moment of that gaze, and then spitting, and then into kissing. So I absolutely co-worked with a marvelous stunt coordinator there. And again, we're dovetailing our skills from that aggressive, you know, for that fight through into the intimate content. And it's always a joyous day for me. It's really lovely co-working with that practitioner, us bringing the best of both of our skills in order to serve that storytelling.
You mentioned, I mean, it's like, I don't know if, I mean, I wonder if the Me Too movement has sped up your role in the industry. You have that feeling, because I think you were like working on that before the Me Too movement. You were like keen in showing that role to the industry, but I don't know if that Me Too movement has sped up the inclusion of your role in the industry. How do you feel about
yes,
that?
No. So yes, I started considering how I kept my actors safe in 2014, and then 2015 got asked to start teaching what I was developing to drama schools, and then I taught the work from 2015, and then by 2017 the actors were saying, this is great in drama school, what about in the profession? So I started talking to British Equity about the development of my work. I shared the work with the group of agents, which is called the Personal Managers Association, in June of 2017. But so this obviously was before Weinstein, and that aspect of, you know, an actor saying to a director, I want to give you the best intimate content that I can. And the way that I can do that is by working openly, clearly, clear conversation, agreement and consent, and putting in place these guidelines. That was really new. You know, flipping on its head, rather than saying an actor going, oh, I'm really worried, going, you know, this is saying to a director, this is how I can give you the best of my skills as an actor with this intimate scene. It very much was still the attitude of, oh, here's an intimate scene, nobody would talk about it. You get to the day on set, right, just do it. It really was still that sense of, if an actor said no or that they were uncomfortable, there wasn't a forum for that, there wasn't a process for that, and it was considered, as I've said, you know, a director, you know, might consider an actor a troublemaker or being a diva. So that was the atmosphere that was happening before Me Too. And thank you, Bella.
Sorry, no, I mean, go ahead.
It's my coffee being delivered. So I was aware that the narrative that I was inviting the people that I was, the actors in the drama schools and then in the profession, to bring to the industry was challenging. And the shift with the Me Too and the Time's Up movement was that those first actors who came forward as a, you know, with the Weinstein allegations, for the first time were being listened to and heard regarding the emotional and psychological injury, the long-term effects of that abusive behavior on themselves, on their lives. And then the industry saying, we cannot continue to turn a blind eye to predatory behavior. We have to do better. And then in that place, creating codes of conduct, which sets out just working with respect for each and every practitioner. And in that atmosphere, then the role of the intimacy coordinator was in fact, the industry is looking for it. It's like, well, if we're in this intention of working with best practice, working with respect, how do we do the intimate content well? And I was there ready to say, here is the intimacy onset guidelines, giving you a clear pathway, clear protocols through which to then equally work openly, professionally with the intimacy, of the intimate content.
I may be wrong, but I think it's right now it's an HBO policy to have an intimacy coordinator on set every time. I don't know, maybe Netflix and all the platforms are going behind or are doing the same, but I don't know if someone in the industry is lagging behind, maybe the film industry, maybe other kind of TV like other networks are lagging behind. Do you have that impression? Or?
So it's really interesting. Long form, you know, television series or, you know, or the TV series seem to be the productions that, you know, that have embraced it, as you said, like Sex Education, Normal People, I May Destroy You, Brave New World, Watchmen. Films have been slightly behind. And I think that's because there's one director overall, perhaps the trust is built up more. You know, whereas of course in a TV series, you've got different blocks with different directors coming in, and there's with that chopping and changing, it's the producer more that is looking at having the arc of putting in place best practice. But it is shifting and changing now in film, you know, that absolutely the role of the intimacy coordinator. And of course, what the difference is during 2020, those productions that I have worked on and other practitioners such as Lizzie Talbot on Bridgerton, when you can see the result of, you know, really good intimacy coordination, creating beautiful, scintillating scenes, and the actors being able to say, and it was a joy, it was a pleasure to work creatively making those scenes. You know, that for me is the joy and the shift in the industry. The industry can go, you know, taking a sigh of relief and understanding what it is, in fact, that we bring as intimacy coordinators, the positive effects across the board, the directors getting the quality and the detail of the scene they want, The production is putting in place best practice across the board so that everybody's taken care of, not just actors, director, but crew as well. And we're creating, as it were, the product is of a higher standard, and I hope it will continue to develop as we continue to develop as intimacy coordinators, as I say, co-working with couples therapists, getting even more detail, so again we can bring more realism, more beauty to intimate content that really reflects who we are as human beings and doesn't give a false sense of how we should be in our sexual lives. So that's, that's a positive effect of putting in place the guidelines, and that could have only happened, post Me Too, within the Me Too and Time's Up movement.
I have to say that as a member of the public, I have also noticed a kind of, I feel that there is a kind of taking care of the women in those productions. I mean, it's like for instance, in Normal People, we love that scene with Marion awakening. I mean, the scene is kind of, I mean, it's like good. I mean, the first time is not easy and it's very well represented, I think. I have,
can I just say though that yes, it is, yes, of course we're taking care of the women, but actually I would really like to highlight that through the open conversation and really inviting agreement and consent, it is as much our male actors as well, who are also being given an opportunity to say, actually, no, I'm not comfortable. No, I don't want to have this degree of nudity. No, I'm not comfortable with that sexual content. And so often I think our lovely male actors have shone up because they're supposed to be the one that's okay, and they're the ones that are supposed to be taking care. And actually this work is about just dropping that and working with everybody as an individual. So I really want to highlight that that this work isn't just for the girl. Yes, it's really important that it is, you wouldn't say to a stunt coordinator, look, you're here for the person playing the goodie. You take care of them, check out with them, and then stand back and do nothing. That's mad. That stunt coordinator is there to create an amazing fight between these two characters in conflict with each other, for both people, for both the protagonist and the antagonist. So same with the intimate content. And when someone says, oh, you're just here for the girl, it's like, no. And like I say, we have to open out the conversation, and that it includes just all of our beautiful actors, so it includes, that parity is given to both our masculine, feminine, our trans, our bi, whatever sensuality, sexuality, gender any actor is, that we are supporting everybody across the board in helping them to be seen, heard, autonomous. And that includes abuses that we have. Of course, there's been fundamentally abuses of male to female, but that isn't, it's not only that. We have to also give a voice and listen and hear all our young men, boys, male actors who equally have been suffering, and that needs to be acknowledged and heard as well.
Thank you so much for this. I mean, this is a very good point. I have a couple of last questions. I mean, we have been mentioning you are also a trained dancer and a former actor, if I'm not wrong. But I mean, you are also right now the CEO of a company. It's called Intimacy on Set, that you are training a lot of feature coordinators for different productions. I don't know, you have been, I think, if I'm not wrong, you have been doing workshops in Australia, in UK, in any place in Europe, apart from those Anglo-Saxon places? Or?
Yes, I was doing some workshops in Berlin with shot acting, the marvelous Matthias, and I would have continued doing more. I've been also doing work in Sweden, in Stockholm, and in Sundsvall. And the intention was to continue. I was due to go to Switzerland, to Lausanne, in March last year, just before lockdown happened. And absolutely, the intention is to continue sharing the work. So I've been sharing the work recently with the Dutch Actors Guild on Zoom, and as soon as we can open out and travel, and most importantly that the COVID is under control enough, vaccines are rolled out enough so that I can bring together people in person to work with the intimate content in a safe way, so that no one's health is being compromised. So that is the challenge for me at the moment, that everything is on hold, because you know, while the productions that I'm working on, thank God, have the finances to put into really robust COVID protocols, testing regularly, be it every day or 3 times a week, that means that nobody's health is being compromised. I cannot do that individually. You know, I don't have the resources or the insurance to be able to demand that, but that is what I would need to ask for right now. So all the in-person workshops are on hold, and I will only open up when I know that I can be robust and there is no risk to health. So everything's been put on hold, but these events are fantastic. And as soon as we open out, then the intention is to come to Spain. Also, France has been starting to ask me. Italy really needs the work. Like I say, Sweden, you know, Amsterdam, Holland. So it's really important that, as you're saying, there's so much work being done in Europe. You know, I have a production that's being filmed in Marseille at the moment. I just had another production that's going to be filmed in Berlin and Hamburg. As you say, in Spain, I've got a production that's happening in Greece at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it's really important that as the industry understands and embraces the work, that then we equally train intimacy coordinators. It's, you know, it's very easy for someone to come, you know, and just hear about the work, do a 4-hour Zoom workshop, and then go and present themselves in the industry as an intimacy coordinator. My intention in those 4-hour Zoom trainings or Zoom sessions is a sharing of the intimacy guidelines, so that each and every person, be it the producer, the casting director, the agent, the actor, can integrate the intimacy guidelines, can be empowered with the language of the intimacy guidelines into their own practice. But that does not make any of those people an intimacy coordinator. The role and the structure and the process of intimacy coordination then is another whole thing in itself. And I'm conflicted, because I want the work to be known, but also we need to be careful as who presents themselves as an intimacy coordinator. It is a complex role. Yes, and you need maturity. You need people who understand the actor-director process. You absolutely need people who are body practitioners, you know, who come from a dance movement director, body awareness background, so that then that dealing with and the language about bodies and choreography is really clear. So at the moment, we're on that cusp of the role being wanted. There's not quite enough people out there, and, you know, for me, journeying so that the role can be trusted in the industry. That's my concern. If someone presents themselves as an intimacy coordinator and they're not trained, yeah, then someone might work with them and go, oh, actually, this role is not for me. Don't know what people are talking about, and that's what I don't want. I want the role to be trusted for. You know, the process and the practice of intimacy coordination for the standard to be maintained is really high, so that across the globe, the role of the intimacy coordinator is something that is really welcomed.
Yes, I mean, I have just two questions to be honest. One is about, I mean, you have noticed differences about what is a intimate content in different countries. Maybe, I mean, I guess that in Germany or maybe in France, they have another view of.
So absolutely. You know, the process of the guidelines is as it is, but what each person brings to it is to do with their own makeup, you know, and of course things impact on that: religion, culture, you know, gender, sexuality, all of that, you know. So how each person then navigates those guidelines or how they're challenged will be different. And then, of course, that goes with every country has their own fundamental culture, their own fundamental relationship with touch, you know, with their sexuality, with that gender parity. And so when each country, your how the work is implemented is subtly changed, and what you're taking care of is subtly different depending on what you're dealing with, you know, in each of those countries. So, you know, for example, you know, in England is, you know, the statement that two English people meet, they'll touch twice. They'll shake hands when they meet, they'll shake hands when they leave, you know. But if you look at a couple or just two people talking in Italy, in the arc of a conversation, they'll touch 50 times. So it's those kind of things that you're aware that as the intimacy coordinator you absolutely take into consideration.
I mean, and you mentioned Spain. I don't know if we are going to see your name in a Spanish production soon or something like that.
I haven't. There isn't actually anything. I haven't been contacted by anybody in Spain at the moment. But yeah, my intention is, that you're here, that sharing this work right now is so positive, and thank you so much for having the inspiration to contact me. Of course, we had a lovely conversation, didn't we, last year?
Yeah.
So this is absolutely fantastic. Again, it's about education first of all, and then I hope for that inspiration. So I would suggest the next thing is perhaps I hold, offer to hold an online Zoom sharing of the intimacy guidelines for anybody that might be interested, and we can organise that, sort of for a couple of months' time, perhaps in June or August, June, July, August. Yeah, and then as soon as we can, and Europe opens up, then come over and do in-person trainings. So that would be the plan.
Thank you so much. It was at that time was a pleasure, and I have to say it has been a pleasure again. And thank you so much, Ita O'Brien, the CEO, can we say, the Intimacy on Set, one of the most important coordinator right now in the industry. And we hope to see you soon in any Spanish production.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. God bless.